everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Motivate with Coach Camp. I, of course, am your host, Coach Camp, and we are down here in the jubilantly, judiciously wonderful studios of SRP with Mr. Derek Michaud. So this week I decided to come to you guys direct. Every once in a while, we like to kind of like hit pause on the guest, me come in, just talk directly to my listeners and my viewers and give a message from the heart. And so this week, I put a lot of thought into what I wanted to say. And ultimately, when I sat down and I got my pen and I started to write, I came up with absolutely no notes. Odd enough, right? It's funny how that works sometimes. You set out on this mission, you have this idea about what you want something to sound like, what you want it to look like, and then nothing really is there that makes sense. Or worse yet, it starts to feel false or fake. So as it got closer to time for today for me to come in and record this, honestly, I thought, you know what kind of is my secret sauce, at least I like to think is my secret sauce, is being able to be real and just speak from the heart about whatever it is that's on my mind in that moment. And hopefully that message will connect with somebody, because I think that's the key, right? It's not that I just come on here and talk and just say words, or we just have guests just for a filler. That's never the point behind anything that I do. I want it to have meaning, and I want it to have an opportunity to connect with at least one person in a way that's meaningful to change their life or change their perspective or give them some hope. Maybe they just needed some encouragement in that moment. And so coming into this studio right here, right now, as I'm driving up the road and I'm kind of rifling through some of the things that maybe I would need help with, or what kind of message would be important in this moment in time, right here, right now. What started to come to me was my recent guest. And what I thought about was this. I've had an assortment of individuals. If you guys have been following along, if you haven't, there's plenty of opportunity. All of the episodes are on YouTube. You can also go find them on Spotify, the other places. If you're listening to this, you know how to find them, obviously. Scroll down through all the different episodes. And recently, we've had Miss Betsy Bailey, meth addict. We had Casey Smith this past week. He was addicted to narcotics, in particular heroin and benzodiazepines. Before that, we had Miss Carolyn O'Brien. And Miss O'Brien she was put in a position where she had to take care of her child that was severely ill for so many years and had to face so many different hurdles. You know, when you start watching and listening to each person's story, even though their story and the place that they're coming from may be a little different and unique to them, there were some commonalities. There were some things that I started to kind of pick up on from one person's story to the next. And that started to resonate with me. And so as I came in today, I thought to myself, man, you're always high energy. I talk to myself a lot, by the way, just full disclosure. I talk to myself a lot. My wife would even tell you that. She would attest to it. And, man, I can get fired up at times, and I can get really energetic, but I think there's value sometimes in taking a step back and just being thoughtful and meaningful and real. And that's what I want this message to be about. It was really my point of perspective, looking at their stories individually and thinking about their different battles or struggles that they've been through. And there was some common ground, even though their stories were very different. One of those things was, and this stands true for me, is even though they found themselves in difficult spots, and maybe some of their situations were, poor choices. Obviously, Casey's and Betsy's, they would tell you that it was just poor choices that brought them down that road. And then like you have Miss Carolyn, which, she didn't do anything wrong, and she found herself in a very tough spot with her child. And the one thing they all could have done was use those moments to be an excuse to feel like they were a victim of something. But ultimately, they were on my show telling their story of coming through those storms. And as I thought about that, I thought, how could that resonate to me personally? Because obviously I've shared a lot of my stories. If you guys have listened or watched over the different episodes, you've heard a lot of who I am, where I've come from, what I've done, what I've been through, etc. And I didn't face a lot of those types of tumultuous events in life. And that's one of the things I talk about in the stories, is that I don't always, I can't experience everything, nor would I want to. But what I can do is have a platform to share other people's stories, to be able to connect with people out there that have gone through those things or are currently going through those things. And for myself, thinking about how is it that I have looked at life and not become a victim of a situation. And it was kind of tough to put into context at first, but it started to come to me. And it's simply this. I am an ambitious person. I am an optimistic person. If you don't know me, watching these episodes will give you one perspective. If you know me deeply and you've been around me, you would attest to this. Over the course of my lifetime, I have a way of not just finding the silver lining of a cloud, but finding the entire silver cloud. I want to see the best in a situation. I want to see the best in a person. And one of those things that resonated with me was it was a quote that I come across many years ago, and I've used it before, but I think it bears repeating. And that is, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. And I'm like, wow, I didn't always think about that quote, but that's what I've lived by for so long. And it's true, because if we get so caught up in the moment that we're in, how bad that moment is, how difficult it is to see forward, how tough it is to find hope, ultimately, that is how we check out. Ultimately, that's how we give up. But as long as you continue to see down the road of possibilities, and you never quit working toward those goals, whatever that is, those goals can become an achievement. It's funny because so often we see the finish line as the golden moment. But for me, what I've come to find to be more true than anything in every journey that I've ever taken in life was the journey itself was always the prize. And I know I'm not the first one to say that. If you look over any type of motivational speaking, you're going to see that. But I felt that way long before I got into this line of work and started speaking to people or doing podcasts or any of that. But it's true. It's true because along the journey road, we're given tools that we don't realize we're getting. And I spoke to that a lot over the last few weeks. In fact, you just recently saw the episode of Miss Marika, which she completely found herself in some difficult spots that she had no control over. She's in Las Vegas at a country show and a guy starts shooting into the crowd. She did nothing wrong. She finds herself in an innocent conversation with a guy that she goes on one small, somewhat date, and he becomes a stalker. Of course, we can always do that Monday morning quarterback thing where we're constantly thinking about if I hadn't done this or I should have done that, but we can't be that way. Because along life's road, that journey, it has given us tools. And Marika spoke to that. And so did my other guest in their own, direction of what their line was, whatever that story was they were sharing. They've given that kind of a perspective, is that on that journey, they would have never chosen it for themselves. They would have never woke up and said, this is what I want in my life. I want this turmoil. I want this difficulty. Nobody would say that. That's in their right mind. I would have never said I wanted some of the difficult moments I've had to go through myself. I wouldn't have signed up for it. But what I found was, my gosh, refusing to give up, refusing to stop. Suddenly I got strength. In my weakest moments, I didn't realize I was getting stronger. So I started trying to equate this to life. And this is some of the analogies I want to use for you guys, because I think this is important. And really, it does come to me through self-reflection, obviously doing the podcast, but then speaking constantly. It creates an environment for me to stop and just really consider what it is I'm living through, what it is I'm doing, and why it is I'm doing that. And why is it important? All of those things are constantly cycling through my head. If you don't think this is real, I would challenge you. Contact some of my close friends. Ask them about me. This is not any different. I turned 51 this year. And I started thinking about how is it that I have come through so many moments in my life and not felt Great Depression or not felt so downtrodden that tomorrow couldn't come and that couldn't be better. And, I think part of it could be genetics. I'm not going to dispel that. Obviously being in medicine, genetics does play a role in that, whether the dopamine and serotonin and all those chemicals that release in your brain that help you think and help you react, those things are there, and some of that's genetics. But it is also your line of sight, your focus. Why is it important for you to go through those struggles? And then when I started relating that to some of the things I've done in my life, it starts to kind of become a little bit more clear. So I'm not going to give you that golden answer to life. If that's what you're here for today, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm not going to be able to give you that, but I do want to give you some perspective. So these questions have been asked to me at different times. So I'm just going to kind of relate some of that. Why do you run every day? Why do you run a minimum of 2 miles every day, Coach Camp? Why do you do that? I've been asked that by my students, handful of friends, and it's simple. At first I thought, well, it's going to help me stay in shape. So whenever I'm ready to do a marathon, I can go out and train and get there. That was part of it. But then it actually became a bigger reason. See, and I think this relates to life because a lot of times in our lives, we are going through something and we may have an idea about why we're doing it, whatever that is, what we're doing it for, but we're not realizing all the side benefits that we're picking up. And that's why I want to encourage you to stop and reflect on stuff when you've gotten to the end of something. So what I started realizing was those 2 miles was creating self-discipline. It didn't matter how bad the day was going, how busy the day was, what kind of obstacles I was facing. I had to find time to get that 2 miles in. To this date, right now, as I'm taping this, I can tell you we're closing in on 2.5 years that I've done at least 2 miles every single day. And if you go back a year before that, it'll be 3.5 miles that I've ran at least 1 mile. It started out with just 1. And then I was like, well, that's pretty easy. I've upped it to 2. That becomes a little bit more challenging. So self-discipline. The other part was personal accountability, which goes hand in hand with self-discipline. You need people in your life to keep you accountable. Casey spoke to that. People need other people to keep you accountable because it's easy sometimes to not be honest with ourselves or to make excuses. But if you have somebody over there in your corner prodding you, keeping you on course, that a lot of times is all that we'll need is just one person. For me, I knew that building that accountability to myself where it didn't matter to anyone else. If I didn't do my 2 miles today, would you care that's watching this? No. Would my wife care? No. Would my kids care? No. Nobody would care. Just be like, oh, okay, he quit. It mattered to me. So accountability, self-discipline, focus, time management. These are all skills that we need in every aspect of our life. So when you build small little moments that challenge you, you're strengthening yourself. Okay? The other part of this thing that I started to realize that all of my guests seem to have in common is the idea of hope. And man, did that really come true this past week? For many of you, I'm sure that you're familiar with the professional golfer that took his life. And that got me to thinking about Robin Williams when he committed suicide. And then I have friends and family members that have committed suicide, unfortunately. It's not something that is so foreign. In fact, most of us probably know somebody, if it's not personal related to us, they know someone that has had this happen. And the one common denominator was a lack of hope. The lack of hope. The inability to see that tomorrow could be better than today. And I get that. I do get that. And I think that's tied to having that person in your corner. So once again, I'm encouraging you guys to listen to these messages, relate it to where you are right now in life, and see if there's something you can take from it to use for yourself. So accountability keeps your self-discipline on point. Having somebody in your corner to keep you accountable can also be that person that helps you stay focused on hope. And hope so often is tied to the idea. It is an idea that where you are today, the chapter that you're writing now doesn't have to be your last chapter. That actually what you're going through today is the strength you need to get through tomorrow. Relate this and let's do a couple things. Let's relate this to a few things. Let's use some analogies real fast. So think about going to school, okay? For me, obviously, you guys know if you've been watching, I'm a professor. I teach at Southwest Community College in the EMS program. I have students that come into my class. This past week, we started our summer program, EMT Basics. They will come in, they know nothing. Most of them will know nothing about EMS at all. They have no clue. They're getting into it because it's an idea, a thought. Somebody told them it might be kind of cool, which is all the reasons why you go after something is because you think, well, this is going to be important. Maybe I should try it. I like the idea of it. They come into the class, and the first thing I like to tell my students is if you want to be successful in this program and you want to see yourself moving forward, you have to take it serious. You have to be intentional. You have to work hard. I give you all the same kinds of comments that I'm talking about here today, but in a broader form. I need you guys to understand something. They didn't come into that class on day one knowing much of anything about EMS for most students. But I also see those same students, those same types of students that come in knowing nothing. 2 years later, finishing their paramedic. Now, here's what happens. Along the way, they will hit bumps in the road. They will hit these difficult chapters. They will hit a stretch where they're not doing well on test. And it's easy to give up. It's easy to question, why did you go down this road? The one thing that I always recommend to my students to do is to go back and think about, why did you start? Why did you start this mission? Why is it important to you? Why did you invest your time? Why did you invest your money? And you can relate this to everything you're doing in life, whether it's your job right now, whether it's your relationship with someone, whether it's a personal health journey. Why did you start? The point was, why did you go down this road? Did you think it was supposed to be easy? Did you think everything was supposed to work exactly the way you wanted it to? Because I've been guilty of that, by the way. This is not like I'm preaching at you. I'm preaching to us about this. It's easy to get into something and think that it should go this way or that way. And in this timeline, it should work the way that it's supposed to. And I put the work in, I put the time in, and this is what I'm owed. And then when it doesn't work, what happens? You start to become, whether you start questioning whether or not it was worth starting. You start questioning if you're worthy. You start thinking that you can't accomplish anything. So hope starts to diminish. And whenever that starts to fade, when hope is lost, all is lost. So I have to encourage them and let them know, look, this was not supposed to be easy from day one. This was not supposed to be something that you came into and you weren't challenged. And in my opinion, that's why you're here. Because if you're in something and you're not being challenged, then you're probably not growing. So you should choose to do hard things. A person is once, I had this conversation, I can't remember, it was probably a guest. And they said that they get tired of hearing people say you can do anything and become anything you want to be in life. I kind of get that concept, because the truth is there are limitations. I realize conventionally, if I wanted to run and jump and slam dunk on a 10-foot basketball goal, I physically cannot jump that high. I just can't. And I don't think there's any level of training I could go through to do that. But so often what happens is you get so stuck in your mind of thinking there's only one way to accomplish a goal that you give up so early. And I think that's where the tools of being a paramedic come into play. Because as a paramedic, what I found was I never had that option. I couldn't get on the scene of a wreck or a fire or any other type of emergency and see all of the ways I would fail at trying to be successful. The only thing I could do was think about the next way to try to be successful. You only had the option of being successful. Now, granted, you didn't always put the fire out in time to save the structure. You didn't always bring the person back from death. People die. That's all part of it. But the idea is that you have to not stop. You cannot quit. You have to keep going. You have to find the next thing. If this isn't working, you better shift gears quick. That gave me tools in that moment, and I didn't realize it. I did not realize the tools that was given me for life was to figure out, if this isn't working, how could I do it better? How could I do it different? How could I still be successful, but maybe I'm not doing it the conventional way? So to put that into the terms of slam dunking on a 10-foot goal, maybe I can't run flat-footed, jump up and slam dunk a basketball. But are there other ways I could slam? Maybe I could get a trampoline. Maybe I could lower the goal. Maybe I could get somebody to boost me. You see, the goal of slam dunking the ball, if that's the goal, there are different ways to get there. Now, there's the grandiose way of getting there, where you just do an Air Jordan. I get that. But that's the problem. Is so many of us think about only the Air Jordan way of doing it. Think about your goals right now, whether it's a job, whether it's your relationship, whether it's just matters of your life in any aspect. Are you thinking about other ways to be successful at the thing that you really want to achieve? Because you see, I think it's that ability to adjust and redirect how we get something done will ultimately determine how successful we will become. I'm sure you guys are very familiar. 2024, Summer Olympics. It's coming up. I love to watch the Summer Olympics. I do. I'm an Olympic junkie in that respect. I watch some of the Winter Olympics, but I love the Summer Olympics, man. I love the diving, the swimming. I love the track and field. These athletes are phenomenal to watch. Now, you see where I'm going with this? Guess what comes on after the Summer Olympics? The Paralympics. You familiar? These are people that have some version of societal handicap, even though I can assure you they do not see themselves as handicapped. I can assure you. These individuals still had the same goals. They had the same goals of playing basketball. They had the same goals of doing downhill skiing. Whatever it is, they didn't allow their situation to limit the ultimate goal. They just had to go about it different. I hope you're picking up some of the stuff I'm laying down right now, because I guarantee you, somebody right now, right this second that's watching this, they're in a moment in their life where they feel like they've exhausted all of the ideas they have. They cannot see how there is a path forward because they're only seeing the goal being achieved one way. Maybe they've tried 10 ways. I'm going to say this. If you've tried it 10 ways, try it 11. If it means enough to you to keep going, because you're 100% guaranteed to fail the moment you quit. That's the only time failure is permanent. You have death and you have quit. That's it. When you're dead, your achievements will finish on earth. If you quit, your achievements are finished. That's it. So as long as you find a way to move forward, success can be inevitable. Look, I could give you 1,000. I could give you maybe not 1,000, hundreds, maybe not 1,000. I could give you hundreds of examples, literally hundreds of examples of moments in my life that I had set forth on a mission, on a path, and thought to myself, if I do these things, I will be successful in this amount of time. And it didn't come true. But I can also tell you, along that same path, I always reconsidered two things. One, is it worth my time and effort? Whatever that thing was I was going after, did I give it my best effort? Did I give it all I had? Was I all in on the idea? And if I was, the next question is it worth my time to go back and get? Because sometimes in our lives, there's value in shifting gears. Maybe you don't have that heart for it that you need to have, because things that are really hard to do often require a lot of dedication. And if you don't have the dedication, chances are those really hard things to do are not going to become a reality. So you got to have that in you. You got to have the passion and the heart and the dedication to just keep going. And if you don't have that, there's nothing wrong with shifting gears. I had a person in my class. They had been through paramedic school twice. They had started a third time, not my personal class, different paramedic class, but individual I knew. And in the third time, they just realized it's not a part of them. Now, I will tell you, if they would have continued, chances are they would have eventually passed. You don't give up on something and you keep working at it. Chances are you eventually will achieve that thing one way or another. But it does come down to, is it worth your time? Is it worth your effort? Because if you don't have a heart for it, then you're not going to be successful. It's like this with what I do as far as my physical challenges, okay? I like to coach people into running. People that like to, start a new journey. And I've coached everybody from, getting ready for the first 5K all the way up to, obviously, my wife completing her Ironman, lots of marathons along the way. And the one thing that I hear a lot of folks say is whenever they start back, they're finding their baseline. They're trying to figure out where they stand. They like to go back to where they were. And we should never do that in life. Okay. It's okay to remember and have reflection, but you shouldn't compare. I'll have a person that, they were 160 pounds in high school and they could run, a 6-minute mile. And now here they are, they're 40 years old and they're 230 pounds and they go out and they try to run their first mile and they can't even run most of it. And they're walking and they finish in like 18 minutes. And they're so disgusted at themselves because that's 3 times longer than it took them when they were in high school. And the first thing I'll always tell them whenever they get back to me is stop comparing yourself to the 17-year-old you. Okay? It's okay to have those memories, but that's not who you are. Let's figure out where you are right now, and let's get one step better tomorrow. So if it's 18 minutes today, let's go for 17 and a half minutes the next time you run. And then let's go for 17 minutes. Those baby steps is how we achieve every single thing in life that's hard. Casey Smith talked about that in his addiction recovery. You don't walk up to a mountain and look at the top and think about how easy that's going to be. You walk up to a mountain, you see the top, and you think, all right, I got to get going one step at a time. Because if you're looking at the top of the mountain and you're thinking about where you are at the base, it's so easy to give up and say, that's impossible, walk away from it. So whenever you're suddenly 100 pounds heavier than you've ever been and you run 3 times slower than you've ever ran, You should not expect this to be a quick process, but you got to be dedicated, one step at a time, 1 mile at a time, and you work toward that goal and set yourself goals. And if you say, hey, look, I want to run a mile in 9 minutes and I'm going to give myself 6 months to do it. And in 6 months, you work at it and you're ending up at 10 minutes a mile. Look at the progress. Don't look at the defeat of where you ended up versus where you wanted to be. Think about how far you came and let that be your inspiration to keep going. Look, I'm speaking truth to you right now from what Coach Camp has gone through. This is why I do feel like I'm an effective coach, because I use my own life examples. And so often I will find myself falling into the exact same moments that I'm talking to you about. And I have to give myself a Coach Camp talk. And that's weird, but it's what I do. It's why I am able to constantly get back up and feel like I can do this thing again tomorrow, because I'm able to reflect and I'm able to think about all the types of advice that I've given other people. And I'm like, if that's good enough for them, it better be good enough for you, mister. Look, full disclosure, more than once, I thought about quitting podcasting. More than once I thought about how much work goes into getting the right guest, being able to deliver the right story, connecting with people, paying for the rent that it cost to be able to produce all this. And it's overwhelming because, you feel like you should be at this point. Like when I started, I thought, hey, look, I'll have, millions and millions of listeners in no time because the messaging will be great. My guest will be great. And we'll just spread like wildfire. And finances won't be a problem. Won't have to worry about that. Well, that's all lies to an extent. The finances are a problem. And it is hard to find guests and it's the right guests. And it is hard to find the energy sometimes to come up here and deliver the right message. But you know what wasn't hard to find, boys and girls? My why. It wasn't hard to find the inspiration. It wasn't hard to figure out why I started. It wasn't hard to understand that the mission has always been the same. And that's to impact even just one person. Just one person. If I could impact one person and change their lives in a positive way, I've always told myself that's why you do this. That's why you do this. Just one person. We're not doing it for money. We're not doing it for fame. We're not doing it because I think I know everything. For sure, that's not the case. I don't have all the answers to everything. But I do feel like I have some value. I do feel like that I can deliver a message to people in a moment that they need it. And so that's why I didn't write anything down. I just wanted to come and talk from the heart. I wanted you guys to know that what you see here is real. I wanted you to know that mission that I've been going down for some time now, going on a year and a half, I have been achieving it all along. And I guess I just didn't realize it until I stopped to think about it, because I have people contact me almost every week and say that message spoke to me. I needed that. Thank you for sharing that. That touched my heart. I needed to feel like I wasn't alone. I needed to know that there was hope tomorrow. And I'm like, wow, okay. Camp, that's why you started. So yeah, is the journey hard? Yeah, it's hard. Is it hard to pay bills sometimes? Yeah, it's hard. Is it hard to find the right guest and deliver the right message and have the right energy and do things the way it should be done so that you connect with people? Yes, it has to be intentional. It has to be intentional, just like life does. But that's the point. Because you see, right now, I don't even know the tools I'm giving myself. I don't even know the stuff that I'm going through and how much this is going to impact me, myself, or my family, or my friends, or you, the viewers and listeners. I just know that it matters. I know that it's meaningful. I know that when the time comes and all things do come to pass, nothing lasts forever. I know when that moment comes, I can look back and I will hopefully have planted seeds that grow way beyond anything Coach Camp could have ever done. Because you see, I think that's the big picture here. We live by example. We go through certain storms to share our stories, to give other people the strength and courage and hope that they need in their tough moments so that they one day will reach the next generation as well. That perpetual motion forward is so critical. So you have a voice too. This isn't Coach Camp world. You have a voice. Be positive. Know that it matters. Be intentional. Stay disciplined. Stay motivated. Stay focused. Be dedicated to the process. And when you find yourself in a spot that you didn't think that you would be in because you had everything planned out just right, so perfect, and you don't know why you're there, understand that you're there for a reason and there's a lesson to be learned. And that moment is going to come to fruition. And whenever you look back, you're going to be a stronger person. You're going to be better for it. You're going to be able to help people that you never thought you could help. And you may not even know that you're helping them. But then that person's going to help the next person behind them, and things are going to be better in this world. And I know that you can do it because I'm sitting here as a living example, somebody that did not think that they had the right voice or the right knowledge or the right opportunity. And I know good and well that this message matters, and I want you guys to sign on, be a part of the Coach Camp team. Let's keep moving forward. Let's keep spreading moments of positivity because that's what this world needs right now more than anything. So please continue to tune in, continue to watch, and until next time, Coach Camp out.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up, it's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's